Hi, this is Jesse James. Thank you so much for tuning into the Focus for Me podcast. I'm so grateful that you chose to be with us here today. And what the podcast is really going to be about is being able to share different ways that we've accomplished goals, set goals, failed, and how we've started over. Different ways of that we've experienced gratitude practices, some bucket list or experiences that we'd like to have in life. And we're going to have some amazing guests that talk about meditation and different aspects of life. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we look forward to being on this journey with you.
Jesse, congratulations on your first episode of your podcast. I'm so honored to be here today and kicking things off with you, and so grateful to be starting out by asking you questions about your journey and about the app and all the things that our viewers and your listeners want to know about. So thank you for having me here to kick off your first episode.
Thank you, Nicole. It's so great to be here to talk about Focus for Me and just the journey that has brought us here today. So thank you.
Thank you. And I am so grateful to have met you a little over a year ago, around actually this time last year, I think. And I've watched this journey just in the last year, and, you know, watching you get to this place today of being able to launch this. And I'm so proud of you. So for everybody listening that might not know you or might not know about the app, let's start from the very beginning and tell everybody how you got to be sitting here today launching this beautiful new offering.
So I think there's lots of beginnings, and so it's like picking the beginning that really made the biggest impact. But as I was thinking about even preparing for this morning, the thought that kept coming up was, I remember when I was first going to massage school, and someone said, this is primarily a female industry, like men don't really make it in this industry. And I remember thinking at that time, like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And it took me back to the first time I really became aware of that second voice that always runs in my head. Like there's always this conversation going on. Even right now as we're speaking, there's still this thoughts about what I'm saying or how I look or all the stuff that's running in the background. And I remember hearing someone say again around that time, is like, you can't ever stop your thoughts, or you can't really control what you're thinking. And I'm like, and again, like kind of the same thing. I'm like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And that was really the starting point for me to really, I began to notice the thoughts that I was having and how many of them I didn't like and how many of them really created a lot of suffering in my life. And so that was really the beginning point of taking a huge journey of transforming my mind, really reprogramming how I think, what my reality is because of how I think. And it's been about 12 years since that first thought came up.
Well, and also bravo to you for taking time to do the inner work, right? Because what a beautiful way to live the rest of your life.
Well, for sure.
Right.
I mean, there's so many benefits to it, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and I can't wait to dive in, because I know for a lot of people, when you do bring up, not you per se, but when people in general or mainstream media talk about meditation and the benefits of it, a lot of people get overwhelmed by it. So how exciting to have developed something that's actually going to ease people into the process and have fun with it at the same time, right?
That was really the idea behind it. As for a lot of people, it is meditation. Like, you've got to be sitting in the right way, wearing the right clothes, or in the right yoga studio. Well, there's lots of ways to meditate. It can be running, it can be riding your bike, it can be hiking, sitting on a mountainside just for a moment, just reflecting on your thoughts, just taking a moment to even be aware of your breathing.
Yes.
And so for me, the word meditation really transformed for me when I was actually at a yoga retreat several years ago up in Lake Tahoe. And I enjoy yoga and I like to practice yoga, but I preferred to sit and be in the meditation classes that were happening. And so I was sitting in this one meditation class, and the guru that was there speaking really talked about the many different ways to meditate. And when he sat there and he described that, like, you could be running, or you could literally just be laying or sitting or doing any of those things. It's really about being mindful and thinking about what are the thoughts I'm thinking right now, and how can I just be still and listen. It really transformed everything for me. It's like, this is not, people get so confused by the word meditation. And so part of what my mission was in creating Focus for Me was kind of allow that word to be there, but have it not be the focus, because there's so many other ways to really accomplish what we want to accomplish in life, or what you want to accomplish in life, when you become aware of your thoughts, because that becomes your reality, and meditation complements that for sure.
It's a beautiful moment if you're self-aware enough to recognize that we are the creators of our own reality, right? And obviously you were living a beautiful life and doing a lot of things, but there was a catalyst for you that actually made you go, hey, I need to step back and kind of change the trajectory of my life. And obviously meditating and all the things you were doing were part of it. But would you say the mission for actually putting forward this app, what was the root of that, and what's the bigger story around that? Because there's so many entrepreneurs out there and people who are inspired to create things, but they don't take the steps to actually do them.
Yes, that's so. There was two starting points for that. One was at that beginning point where I became aware of the thoughts I was creating, how that was created my reality, and I was not happy with my reality. I had just come out of a very ugly divorce. I was not in a really good space with my children at the time. They're still my children, but with my children,
Right.
And or my ex-wife. And I just noticed, like, it doesn't have to be this way. And I was also going through a breakup. And I noticed as I was becoming aware of my thoughts, I was in a really peaceful place one day. I was walking my dog, and suddenly I was looking at my phone. I remember that much. And suddenly I started feeling all this tension over my shoulder. And that's typically where I'm very sensitive to my body, where I would start to feel, if I was stressed out or if I was thinking thoughts that would just stress me out, I would start to feel it over in my left shoulder.
Yes.
And I was like, wait, stop a second. What was I just thinking that has that stress? Because I'm walking my dog. I feel great. It's the early morning. There's nothing to be stressed about. And I went back, and sure enough, like, I was just like in my thoughts, even though I was doing something on my phone, the thoughts that were running were that of just this negative conversation about the breakup I was going through. And I'm like, wow, if my thoughts are that powerful to manifest stress in my body, let's see if I can actually reverse that. And so I literally just started giving gratitude for this relationship, for everything I'd learned.
Yes.
And I literally just watched the energy unravel on my shoulder. I mean, I have goosebumps just thinking about it, because it was so surreal that, I mean, I remember where I was standing, where I was walking my dog, where I lived in that moment that it happened. And then fast forward, 10 years later, because it was 2006 when that happened, and then it was 2016 when the next beginning part happened, where, and the thing about life is that we've never arrived anywhere. It's always a journey and growing. And so I've learned to give myself space for that. And even though I've been on this journey for a long time, and I have the awareness and the mindfulness of the right things to do, so to speak, or where I want to be, there's still the journey of getting to that point, and still like erasing all those memories, that cellular memory of, and all the thoughts that we've had for so many years since birth that create our reality. And so I was at a point with my relationship with my children, and my ex-wife, again, still, that just was not in the place where I wanted it to be. And I just finally had enough of all the work that I'd done to really recreate who I am, and had lots of evidence of that going the right direction. There were still some things in my relationship that just wasn't happening how I wanted, and I just had a solid conversation with my ex-wife and my kids on that particular day in October of 2016. That was a very tough conversation, and it was one of the toughest conversations literally that I had my entire life. And over the next 24 hours, I found myself like, what did I just do? It was one of those WTF moments. Like, I just cut my kids out of my life. I just cut my ex-wife out of my life. Like, and what I realized in that 24 hours is, one, I actually became suicidal in that time. Like, I really struggled with, they're my life. I realize they're the whole reason that I live and I exist. And they may not always see that, and I may not always realize that, but they're the reason. And everything that I get to do in life is a benefit because of them.
Wow.
And I realized the depth of my love for them in that 24 hours. And it was somewhere in that 24 hours that I said, you know what? F this. I'm going to go become the best version of myself that I can possibly be. And that was the turning point for me. And within a few short months, this focus for me began to evolve.
Wow, first of all, that's so powerful and vulnerable and brave of you to share. I'm sure it will actually resonate with a lot of people listening. So thank you for sharing all that. It's usually people, though, I feel like, that have to hit this rock bottom before they really get the clear, intentional focus to really shift things around, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the vision and the ideas and the want to do, accomplish different things over the years, but it was not until I got to that point and this entire journey of creating Focus for me as an app to be able to share with the world, it was complete focus on my part to bring it to where it is now.
I love that.
Even to the point of canceling my internet at home so I wouldn't be watching Netflix, canceling my Netflix and my Hulu and Amazon account, things that I would sit there and numb out to, even though I enjoyed watching them and they were great to do. But I needed to have complete focus to bring this to where it is now.
And you have, and I've witnessed it, and I've seen you cut things out of your life to be super intentional. For me, knowing you, and I know all the listeners will get to know you more that don't, but that's what makes this so exciting and also very intentional with your mission, because you firsthand have experienced both sides. A life how you didn't want to live, and now you're in an energy that you do want to continue life. And you see how the clarity and the meditation and all these things have brought you to a place of moving forward into the life that you've wanted. That's the power of meditation. But I think that having you had gone through all those things makes this so much more real in the way that you can now spread this mission and journey further, because people can relate to the fact that you're not just someone who woke up one day and said, hey, I'm going to create an app. This is part of your journey. It's very clear. It's very intentional. There are obviously a lot of apps out there, and I've seen it firsthand, so I know all the things that are included. But what if you were to say to somebody who's already interested in learning more about it or actually getting it, is different about this versus maybe other meditation apps out there?
I think there's a lot of really good meditation apps out there, and I'm really, I'm at a place where I'm so happy to see that when, my mission, like I'm sure I know a lot of missions out there and people out there, is that there's so much possible in life. There's so many amazing experiences to have and to experience. There's so many great things to do and to accomplish. There's so many loves to have and to, experience these rich, beautiful, abundant relationships.
Yes.
And what I like about Focus for me, and where I think that you'll really love it, is that it allows you to, where I started from the beginning, is like, okay, well, if I'm going to transform my thoughts, what do I need to do? And so some of the first things I did is I remember at that time when I first started thinking about this is, again, in 2006, when I first had this thought about retraining my brain, was I cut out television. I cut out radio. I started really plugging in, okay, if I'm going to take all the stuff out that it doesn't serve me, what can I start putting in that actually does serve me? And so I started listening to some guided meditations. And for about 7 years solid, I listened to a guided meditation through the whole night while I sleep. It just kept on repeating. And it had a lot of I am declarations in it. And it just got into my subconscious. And then I'd start listening to it during the day, and I'd hear some of the things I was like, oh, I'm actually thinking and saying some of those things now. So I knew it worked. And so then as I just sat with that for a long time, I just started looking at like, okay, well, how can I take my goals that I'm working on and take these I am declarations that we have, like I am love or I am whatever, combine that with what your goal is. So it's actually like a declaration of I am with an action combined with it.
Yes.
So the combination of that, and so then we put that to test. I've been running masterminds for about a little over a year. Yeah. And that's basically how we run our mastermind, is creating those kind of I am declarations, but also adding the meditation and the emotional element into it. And the benefits or the magic that's happened because of adding that combination in there has been really, really powerful. And so I think it's one, like we've added in some of those elements that a lot of the other meditation apps do, which is, again, you want to like still your mind, calm your mind, like create less anxiety, less stress, really be able to center and ground yourself so you can accomplish more in your life and save time, increase your health, save money, whatever it is that you want to do. And for me, it's like I tried to make it as easy as possible when we created Focus for Me, that you can add those different elements into setting up your goals,
Yes.
setting up your action steps for the goals, and then also like creating your IMs and then combining those two. We've already created a beautiful library of music where you can just drop those IMs right into
Yes, I'm so
that
excited.
library and then hit create, and boom. Within literally, I've timed it the last couple of days. It's about 20 seconds. And you've got your full on meditation that you're listening to with all your personalized goals, your IM declarations, and the beautiful music behind it. And they're all 4 minutes. Like I wanted to keep it super simple.
And that I'd say for people listening, because most people, when they hear how much I meditate and how much it's changed my life, usually the reaction I get, which I'm sure you do too, is I don't have time to meditate, or I can't focus, or it's too long, or when am I going to do this? But to know that you can start your day with 4 minutes, it's focused, it's intentional to your goals. I mean, everybody has 4 minutes in the morning.
I understand how you feel. I mean, I felt this. I really honestly felt the same way. I was like, I don't, when I first started thinking about meditating, even just a few years ago, even though I've always done a little bit of form of meditation, it didn't really, the last couple of years.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah,
right?
It can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I was in a personal growth class, and the gentleman speaking said that he takes 4 minutes every day just to focus on his goals. And then there was another, actually Bob Proctor was there that weekend, and I was listening to him, and he talked about just how he's manifesting abundance and things like that. And so I took those two, and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I could take 4 minutes every day and just start, like, really, Jesse, if you just took 4 minutes every day and start focusing on your goals, see how your life could change.
Yes.
And that was where the idea behind Focus for Me came to be, was really just taking, and out of that same weekend, in that same conversation, I created one of my favorite I am declarations, which is, I am now earning monthly my annual income, which is an always already growing I am declaration. Like, it's always like,
which is huge.
And the thing is like, some people are like, oh, well, I don't want to make a lot of money. Well, for me, that works for me. It may not work for you.
That's right.
And what I love about that is I want to have so much that's overflowing in my cup that I can share it with as many people as possible.
Yes. And when did it become a bad thing in society to want to have abundance, right?
That's
right.
There's a different conversation about that.
Yeah, the whole goal is to help and push it forward, right?
Yeah.
But I love what you were saying, because certainly if we're very intentional about wanting to see our reality change, if we can't dedicate 4 minutes in the morning to loving on ourselves and giving ourselves this opportunity to go through this in this process, someone's gonna have to do a lot more work than that, because 4 minutes is it's like putting your coffee together in the morning, right?
Yeah. And one of my favorite things in the app that actually we've created in that same conversation is, I think the secret and the key to accomplishing anything or having more of anything in your life, whether it's more love or a bigger, nicer house, or more beautiful things, or a nicer car, or a relationship of your dreams, is one thing. It's being grateful for what you have right now. It's like the more you can find gratitude in the simplest things that you have right now.
Yes.
I don't care what it is. Right now, find gratitude for something. You will start to have more of that in your life.
So
That's period it. So one of my favorite, there's several things in Focus for Me that I really like, but one of them is that we did add that element in where every day, like, just think of 4 things that you're grateful for.
Yes.
Every night before you go to bed, think of 4 things you're grateful for. We've added a place in there for you to track that as a journal.
It could be as simple as having a pillow to put your head on.
Completely.
Right?
Like,
or
one of my favorite things
when
when I put my head on the bed, when I put my head on my pillow at night, is I literally give gratitude for the sleep I'm about to receive, for how I'm going to wake up in the morning, for I'm going to feel rejuvenated and rested and awake and ready for my day. There's just so much to be grateful for.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we're living in a society of almost like a not enough-itis. So to think about just what we have and what is already around us is so powerful.
Or who am I to deserve this?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think I will say from my experience, because I started meditating about 6 years ago, and it has absolutely changed my life. And as I've continued to grow every day, and by the way, may I never stop growing, I'm learning more and more about the surrender piece. Because when I first started meditating years ago, I I wasn't comfortable doing it in a way where I was trying to control it, right? And so then you kind of almost, it kind of goes a different direction. And if you can ease into it and surrender to it and allow it to just be, then I think that's when you really see the pivots and the changes happen.
Surrender is one of my favorite words. It's definitely come up a lot this year.
Yes.
It's one of the words that I will talk a lot about as we move forward into our podcast. And there's also an amazing book that I refer almost everybody to read by Michael Singer called The Surrender Experiment. Okay. And I resonated with that book so much because it really spoke to the beauty of life and how easy life can truly be. But it really is. I mean, we try so hard and we force things and we we're doers and we take actions, and those are all great things. Yeah. At some point, though, it's like, okay, step back, surrender to the unfolding of life, and then just trust that everything is going to be taken care of.
That's right. And it always is, right?
And it'll be just perfect the way it is.
That's right.
And there's so much peace that you will experience in surrender.
Yes.
And it's definitely one of my favorite words, and one of my favorite things to really focus on is like to allow that unfolding, to trust the abundance, to trust the love, to trust that I'm taken care of.
Yes.
Surrender.
It's such a huge piece too in like physical health, because there's a lot of people that obviously work out and they want to be healthy, but the reality is, and if you're not doing the inner work to become healthy, it really doesn't matter what's going on the outside, right? Because the energy of holding on to things internally is ultimately going to make you sick. What a beautiful way to negate that through the meditation and learning how to surrender, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for 19 years, I've been a healer and a body worker. And one of the things I noticed over and over and over is I'd have clients coming in talking about, oh, this is my bad leg, or this is my bad shoulder, or my neck is always this way, whatever. And so I started really like slowly shifting that conversation with people to hey, your body's listening to you. How else could you actually talk to your body rather than, oh, this is my bad leg or this is my bad shoulder? Well, it's going to keep being that way versus like, hey, this is where I experience some challenge in this arm. And when I bend like this, like it's challenging, like I'd like to have some freedom in that. Yeah. So there's a different way to speak to your body. But I just lost my train of thought there.
Oh, that's okay. The pain in the body.
Oh, the pain in the body. Yes. The pain in the body.
That we all have at some point.
No, but there was a thought around that I was
about the energy, kind of speaking to you, how it.
It's totally gone. It'll come back.
Oh, that's okay. You'll do a future episode on that. I love it. So tell everybody too, where they can start finding this and how they can look for it.
Yeah, so, first off, you can go to our website, four.me. So it's focus4.me. And then from there, you can go to the app stores, whether it's Google Play or the App Store, and download the app. It's available on, iPhones as well as Androids.
And I love the personalization aspect. I think that even, thinking about like friends and family of mine that I would love to get more into meditation. I certainly would never want to force that on anyone. But for me, I think this is such a great thing to turn friends and family onto, because it's such an easy, digestible way to segue into learning about meditation or just how the affirmations work in a really less overwhelming way.
Yeah, and that was really part of my vision for creating Focus for me is, as we've talked about it, before, is that I'm really passionate about working with suicide awareness prevention. And so for me, we initially started this project really as part of the vision behind it was to use it as a tool for the suicide awareness project that we're working on. And it was really as simple as beginning to create some real tactile things to be able to create one, to just start to reprogram your mind, to start listening to some positive things.
Yes.
And you may not be in the best place to be thinking or experiencing those right now in your reality, but you can certainly start listening to those things and plugging in those positive affirmations that you're creating for you, for some visions that you may have moving forward. And so that was really part of the purpose behind us creating that. And less, meditation, there's so many, like we talked about, there's so many great meditation apps that are out there. So it was, for me, it was more that's a great combination of how we created it on the app to be able to create personalized meditations
Yes.
with the I am declarations. But for me, it's more about ending the suffering through the thoughts. It's like disrupting your thoughts and learning a whole new way of thinking that really
Yes.
serves you now.
The suffering part, and I'm glad you brought up the larger mission also of the suicide awareness prevention. And I think anybody listening, through the app, through your website, there's a beautiful community here that you're forming to create a safe place for people to raise their hand and say, I am going through things and I'm suffering and I need some help. And that's usually the first step, as we know, right? Someone just actually asking for some help.
It is. And also, just in that light, for me, it was really, there was a lot of fear in opening up and being vulnerable about. I didn't realize until I started talking about it, I had suicidal ideation for many, many years. And I'd never, ever spoken about it for fear of shame, for fear of what would people think, for whatever. And it wasn't until I had that rock bottom experience in 2016 that I started sharing and talking about that, like many people who reach that point, they do start talking about it. It's like, wow, there was so much freedom and relief in actually being able to communicate it and realize I'm not alone. And how impactful it was for myself for sharing, but also for those that were listening, and the love that I received back was...
You knew you were supported.
I knew I was supported, and it was such a relief to not hold that inside anymore. And that was a complete demarcation in my life from previously always having some form of, suicidal ideation or thoughts to, no, now I'm creating my life. And this is what my life looks like now.
And I think that's the piece that's so important for people to get, is the power in owning this, the responsibility of stepping into this and doing this work. You literally can create and write your own story.
Yeah. And no one, we hear of people like, Robin Williams, like no one would ever have thought someone like him, like happiest man on the world, like everyone on the planet knows Robin Williams. And even just the other night I was watching one of his movies and I'm like, God, this was such a funny, amazing man. You would never think that. Well, same thing with me as a healer. Like my clients would never have thought I was suicidal. My friends would never have thought that. My family certainly never thought that, because there was no communication about that because of the shame that's out there. And so that's really, it's...
part of the larger
about it,
mission,
share it,
right? Have
You're
a
not
safe
alone.
place for everybody to know that, look, everybody has things they're working through. I had a amazing energy healer that we share in common say to me something really enlightening a few weeks ago, because I've been working through a lot of my own things on a healing front with the loss of a family member. And she said to me, "You're never fully healed." And I thought, that's so remarkable for people to understand, because doing all this work is great and we are empowered and we get to call in all the things we want, but we don't have to put pressure on ourselves to reach this goal of needing to be this perfect healed person. We're all flawed and we all have our things, and to be able to just love all of that is really like the secret sauce, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I like to say that and it's not my word, but I coined it I borrowed it from someone. It's, we're all flawsome.
We're all flawed.
We're all completely
That's
awesome in
amazing.
who we are, and we all have flaws. And that's okay. That's what makes each of us unique and different. And, I think what we forget is that we're all connected energetically with each other. And we treat each other like we're so separate because we get stuck in the story that's in our head. And so for me, it's, for my practice of retraining my mind, it's even if I see a homeless person on the street, or I see somebody that I notice I might have some form of judgment for, I immediately notice, now it's been a practice, but I notice that I've got either that judgment, or I notice that the person is homeless and that they may or may not be experiencing suffering. Whatever it is, I still get to choose my reaction to that. And so my reaction to that has been practicing love, like either practicing the Ho'oponopono by saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, or by simply acknowledging and recognizing whatever judgment I may have had, and then just rather than even trying to make that wrong or correct it or anything, I just simply say, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes.
And it switches me back to a state of gratitude. It switches me back to being mindful and aware of where my thoughts are. And it's a practice that has served me very well. And I know it's served others very well.
That's huge. The release of judgment, I think, is one of all of our I personally feel one of all of our biggest lessons in this life to learn. Everybody, because
there's so many forms of it.
There's so many forms of it, and you can feel your body change when you can just be in the presence of somebody and just let them be who they are.
Yeah.
You can see where and it's wild, but we're all human. We've all done it, right? We've all been there. But you're right. I think our mission here is just to continue to share love and compassion.
And that's, so it goes back to, what I love to say is like, the app is about disrupting your thoughts.
Right.
And so when you notice that you've got that judgment about something, it could be about yourself even.
Which usually it is.
Start there.
It usually
Start
is.
just with disrupting your own thoughts that you have about yourself, because the more we can do that, the more we can have love for ourselves, for the space we're in, for where we're at in our journey, knowing that we're all flossom,
yes,
knowing that we are who we are, we're growing.
Yeah.
The more space, kindness, love we have to share with other people.
Yeah.
And it really does begin with that inner journey, that self-discovery of who am I? And focus for me certainly helps disrupt those thoughts. It helps create, a different way of thinking about who I am. And it gives me time to reflect on who I want to be.
I love that you're also introducing this now. I think to me, this is absolutely a legacy that will continue on. If you were to think about now this coming out, like where is this brand and what does this mission look like years from now? Like what is your one? I mean, there's many goals, of course, but what's your ultimate, kind of goal with this?
It's in the traditional business world, is like you got to plan out, but things move so fast these days. Where I really like to be now in my journey is to flow with and be in the flexible flow of what's the app's going to evolve.
Yes.
And really, I have an idea of what I would like for it to be, but it's really going to take on its own life and journey, and that's really how I'm coming to my relationship with the app. Like,
that is the perfect answer.
Okay.
And I think for all the entrepreneurs, especially out there listening, like I love that you went that way, because it's so genuine and authentic to who you are, and obviously why you're doing what you're doing. But I think as entrepreneurs and creators, which I'm sure there's plenty listening, everybody wants to start things and launch things and do things, but a lot of times we have attachment to the outcome. And what a beautiful place to be in I'm launching something that could really help millions of people, but I'm okay just letting it kind of roll and see where it goes.
It's, here's the thing. It's the first project that I've ever worked on that I had from the very beginning. I had this, like, I don't care what it's going to take. And that came from a deeper place in me that wasn't just Jesse. And I recognized that, and I knew that, like, it was, I have goosebumps, like it was something more than me. This app wanted to be created. Like, I heard the saying many years ago is that, an airplane wanted to be created. And so the Wright brothers were the guys that created it. There were lots of other people working on it, but they were the ones who had the vision and the forethought to have that happen. Focus for me wanted to be created, and I just get to be the guy that is the conduit and the facilitator to make that happen.
You're the catalyst.
I'm the catalyst for it, and it is an expression of my journey, and I love my life. I love the journey that I'm on. I love that I'm not perfect, and I love the amount of peace and patience that creating focus for me has given me. It's given me the opportunity to continue to grow and to continue to have enormous amounts of patience. Even when I think I've got patience, I'm like, oh, okay, well, there's still room for more patience.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be however it's going to be. And I know that that's going to be beautiful and perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm not attached to how that is, but I'm confident that if it touches one life, literally,
that's it. You just need one person.
It sounds so silly and cliche,
but
and I know that it'll touch many lives, and I know that it'll save relationships, and it'll change people's lives.
Yeah. Sometimes people just need that one thing brought into their life, and this could be it for millions of people. I mean, I know myself, we've all talked about it. We've all been through things, right? And we've all had moments where we just needed something to help us get the light back again, or get that feeling of hope back, right? So it's a beautiful thing, and I have watched you put all of it together, so I'm so excited for you. What else would you say you want everybody to know just at the start as this is all launching? What can they expect from the show? What's going to happen here on this amazing podcast that you've launched?
Yeah. So the app I've been super excited about. I mean, Focus for me, I've been excited about. But when I started thinking about creating a podcast, actually, it's like, whoa, I'm way more excited about actually having the podcast than I am about the app. And the app is pretty cool. But the podcast is where, for my own journey, it's the other big piece of life.
Yes.
Is one, sharing conversations and communicating is so important, and it cannot be missed. And so being able to have the opportunity to have amazing guests on the show to talk about, hey, how have you created some of your goals? When did you start really becoming focused on creating goals? And what were some of the failures that you had that you learned from, that continued to grow from, that got you to where you're at now? And then what is your vision? What is the legacy you want to live? What are your current goals that you have? And then when we first did the beta test about 18 months ago, one of the things I noticed that surprised me, because for me, I'm a visionary. I am a dreamer. I'm a Pisces. I have no problems using the imagination of my mind, thinking about things that I want to experience or things that I want to have. I mean, I can, I was thinking about earlier this morning, is like, I was listening to Neville Goddard, actually. It was my first time just hearing him yesterday, of all things, and I'm like already in love with just listening to some of his stuff. But he was talking about imagination, and it took me back to a few years ago when I had called a restaurant to order a breakfast. I was ordering an acai bowl, and I'm ordering it, and I literally I know my phone's over here, and I hear in this ear over here, they're gonna pay for your bowl today. And I finished making my order. I walked across the street to grab my bowl. Literally, the manager almost runs over to me, hugs me, and whispers in my ear over here, "I'd like to buy your bowl today." I'm like, I look at her and I just kind of laugh. I'm like, I literally just had that thought.
Divinely
so it's like
timed.
setting that intention, but you have to be still enough to be able to listen to that. And so I think sharing stories and being able to understand we're all human and we all make mistakes and we all have a story to share. We all have our own uniqueness, but it also provides this feeling of being connected. And again, like on that, like what I noticed in 2009, 2010 during the economy crash is living here in Arizona and Phoenix, I would drive around, I'd see so many businesses that had closed. But the one thing that I noticed that really struck out to me is good restaurants would be packed. And I'm like, why is that? And people love connection. They love to be able to they need to be able to be connected, to feel connected, to experience relationship, to experience laughter and love. And sometimes that's with a drink, sometimes it's not with a drink, sometimes it's over amazing food. But we all need that connection and that sharing. And being able to experience and do the podcast is a great way to be able to do that. But to end that point was, one of the things we noticed when we did the test was, and like I started to say, as far as using my imagination, is people have a hard time dreaming.
Yes.
Because I think part of it is not wanting to be let down, like, oh, that's not going to happen, or the lack of, like, I'm not good enough to have that happen, or I don't deserve that, or whatever the subconscious.
Right. Yeah.
And so I was surprised by that, because when we did the beta test and I had people write down, like, what are 10 experiences or bucket list items that you would like to have? That was the most challenging for people to fill out. And I found that kind of fascinating.
Because they don't always allow themselves to go there,
right? To dream.
That's right.
And so that's one of the things I'm excited about bringing to the podcast, to be able to have people hear about some different experiences that people have had that have been amazing. Yeah. To kind of start to spark some ideas, like, oh, okay, I'd like to experience that, even if it's as simple as having tulips on your table every day.
Yeah, but look at, even just sitting here, like, for sure you manifested this. There's a lot of people that could sit and say, I want to have a show, I want to have a podcast. You are launching an app. Clearly there's a lot of intention to your manifestation here. It's powerful when you step back and look at it. You can look at the last 10 years of your life and probably see hundreds of things you've manifested.
Hundreds, yeah.
But also, we don't always manifest the things. Sometimes the things come in a roundabout way, or maybe it doesn't come in the timing we thought, right? So like you said earlier, I think it's having patience with the process, being present now, and finding a way to enjoy the now, so that when things do come in, we're also open to receiving them. That's a huge piece.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not open, like, things could be coming in every day, and if you're a closed off person, or you're stuck in the suffer mindset, or I'm not good enough, like, things are going to pass you by.
And the first place to look when you don't feel like you're getting what you want, the first place I go to look for myself is, okay, what are my thoughts? So disrupt your thoughts.
That's right.
Disrupt your thoughts.
That's right. And it's so amazing. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day. I was with someone who was blaming a lot of things going on in their life. It was kind of like, oh, family genetics, or if this is something with the family kept coming up over and over again. And I thought, I'm not going to sit here and change this person's thoughts. But in my mind, I kept thinking, I know that story because I actually used to tell it to myself. And I had to get to a place where I realized that we all come, obviously, from our wonderful families. And there are things that you do pick up. Certainly there's habits, there's traits, there's physical things, whatnot. But when you realize that you have the power to change that story and not live your life saying, I'm genetically accepting this because this is what I come from, actually, I have the power to change this. Whether it's your health, your finances, your eating habits, all these things, we can actually course correct that.
Correct.
That's so powerful for people to understand. I don't think most people really get that.
They don't. I love all my siblings. I come from a total blended family of 8 siblings. Oh
my gosh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, That's and it's kind of strange because I have 2 sisters named Deborah Lee, two stepdads named Sam, and many siblings all with the same middle name of Lee. But it's just kind of fascinating. The difference between, and I love my siblings, and so this is definitely not anything about them. It's like, but the difference between myself and my siblings has been that thought process. Is like, we grew up very poor, trailer home, in the country in Texas. Many people that know my story, like for the first 16 years of my life, I grew up kind of in a religious cult. Not kind of, I did. And it was a very different lifestyle, and it was very, it was quite poor. And so to come out of that and to be where I'm at, really where I come from, always from gratitude and from abundance, and how my lifestyle has come from being very poor to being able to afford to take amazing trips all over the world with great friends, and to be able to spend a lot of money doing personal growth and other fun things that I choose to do has all come from that mindset of switching that mindset.
And you understanding that you're worthy of these things.
Yes.
Just like everybody else.
And that's a growing evolution of myself.
Everybody, I think that there's no way we would have that kind of self-awareness as a child, right? You have to go through these life experiences, I think, and if you're going to hit some sort of rock bottom at some point, which most of us do in either a relationship or work or something, right? If you're willing to take that as an opportunity to learn from it, you can absolutely change your life. Otherwise, you keep repeating the same pattern.
Over and over and over. And that's where the suffering comes in. Like, as human beings, we have the choice. And the choice is to become responsible for, I have a say of how my life is going to go.
That's right.
Or I'm going to be a victim to my circumstances, and I'm going to continue that conversation. And we have so much to learn going back to, you brought it up, it would just kind of squeeze over. We have so much to learn from children.
Yes.
If we could only as adults go back to
the joy,
yes. the kindness, the sharing, the imagination that a child has. This morning as I was thinking and kind of meditating, the thought that came up was like, children have that imagination, and as adults, if we could get back to have it, and children also, we reference them as like just being almost godlike, like there's just this joy and love that they have, and like as adults, if we could go back to experiencing some of that love and that kindness and that joy, and then bring that godlike imagination back into our lives as adults.
That's, I think, where the powerful manifestations come too, because when you're in that joyful state energetically, you're skyrocketing, right? Like, think of when you're doing playful, joyful activities, you're ecstatic. How can you not manifest goodness from that state of consciousness?
And it's important to find your small little tribe, your people that you can share those dreams with.
Yes.
Because it helps to get it, and well, that's why, that's why I said, like, I have a large community. I have a large community of friends. But I have I've started to really, okay, these are the people I know I can talk to that are going to love me unconditionally. Brene Brown talks about it, like, who are your people that you can talk to that are going to, one, let you know when you've done something wrong, and they're still going to love you. And also they're going to love you regardless of what your flaws are. It doesn't matter. And so I've narrowed that down to a small group of people that I know I can share those kinds of things with. But it's so important to share what your dreams are, share what your visions are, because there's part of there's thinking about it in the head. And it's so important, like on this part that we're talking about here with communication and the podcast, it's so important to get out of your head and share your visions, share your dreams, share your goals, share your hardships, share your challenges. This is a little nugget that for me was a huge breakthrough early, and it only happened in January of this year, of 2019. With all the work that I've done and everything, and I felt like I was in a really good space. I was, totally happy. I felt good. My body felt good. I was excited about the app. It was a few months from coming out. And I don't even remember what happened, but I remember I started to go down that spiral in my head and started to get upset, started to, just feel all that stuff in my body, start to kind of create the anxiety. And I stopped. I was like, whoa, okay, we've been here before.
Yes.
You're about to go into a challenge. You get to choose how you are in that challenge. And Jesse, the exciting thing that we've learned so far when you're in a challenge is that on the other side of that means that growth has happened.
Yes.
And you're at a whole new place in your life. And again, that's why I don't remember what the challenge was, because the moment I recognized that I was about to grow, it was game over for me. And since then, if a challenge comes up, I can move through it so quick now, because I can remember, I'm in a challenge. That means growth is about to happen, and my life is about to get even better because I recognize that. And that has been a powerful shift of context for me just this year.
It's huge. I can relate. As much same as I do all the work, and I've been doing it for years, I've definitely had some challenging times this last year, just coping with a lot of grief in my family, the loss of my father, running a business, all these things, right? There's always things that life, you could just be going about your day, and all of a sudden you get a phone call that someone has passed away, or someone lost a job. Life happens. One of the best things I've taken out of meditation for me personally, which I think anybody who starts down this journey will as well, is that life is going to happen every day. There's always going to be things out of our control. What you learn through meditation, if you really let it in, is you learn that it's all about the way you react to it. So does that mean you can't be emotional? No. Does that mean you can't have a bad day? No. But what you learn in meditation is to move through things in a faster way so that they're not taking over your life and setting you back, right? In ways that maybe we did in the past.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I'm excited about talking about on the app too, is there's lots of ways that people meditate. And then also, what are some of the experiences you've had because of meditation? I have a friend that I talked to recently about how does he meditate, and he goes, well, I do it a couple different ways. One is, first I go into prayer and I ask my questions. And then I go into meditation to sit and listen for the answer. And then I go back into prayer to make sure that I've heard correctly. And then I go back into meditation to listen. And then I end with gratitude.
Yes.
And I either write my gratitude or I just end with gratitude through my thoughts. But it's a really, I'm a very organized person. So for me, it was kind of organized. I was like, well, that's actually makes a lot of sense.
There's structure to it, sure.
It's like, one, we always have questions. And I used to say, we all know the answers. That's one of my things that I'm excited about talking about. I have some pet peeve phrases and words. And one of them is when people say, I don't know. Because the truth is, we all know. Yeah. We've just forgot how to ask the right questions.
And also, I think the second piece of that is, again, the receiving part, being open to letting the answer actually materialize.
But also trusting that the answer has come, because
that's right.
It's like you got to know. And that's part of my request in my prayer is okay, let me hear the answers so well, because I'm so thick-skinned and thick-headed that I usually get my answers in 3 different ways. And so I've just learned that there's usually 3 different ways that I will receive answers and confirmations about something if I have a big question. It's usually I'll see something in media, whether it'll be a license plate or a billboard, or I'll hear something on the radio, or I'll say I'm going to watch this movie, and I'll watch the movie, and somewhere there'll be a little line in there. I was like, oh, there's my answer right now. So that's one way. Two is in conversation. I've learned that I need to communicate what's in my head to get it out, and somewhere in conversation is where I'll find the answer. And the third way is like how I feel in my body. Is like just trusting, like,
body.
okay, where does it feel in my body? And is it a good feeling? Is it a stressful feeling? Like, is my whole body a yes? Like, I know when I've, like, doing a podcast, my whole body was a yes. Like, yes, this is something I want to do. I want to have these kind of conversations. And it's not going to be perfect, and people aren't going to love it, and people are going to love it. It's going to be however it's going to be.
Perfect.
It's like sharing that, because it's going to touch somebody, and it's so important to, one, find out how you're going to hear the answer, and then start to slowly trust that intuition. So, as we even started this morning, I said, one of the things I said off record was, like, I just trust whatever's going to come out of my mouth is going to be perfect the way it is. And it is what it is.
Look, this is a brave thing to do. This is not an easy thing to do. I mean, to launch this app, to put out a podcast, to be vulnerable like this is where you step into the bravery to create the community and the safe space for other people to share, right? And you're a great leader in that way. And this is a beautiful thing, because these conversations are what is going to actually change this world.
So funny that you say that, because, again, just this morning, so you talk about confirmations in your life, right? So just this morning before I came in, I actually had a healing session done. And one of the phrases that came out of that was, it's safe for me to communicate and express my emotions and my feelings and my thoughts.
Yes.
And you just literally said that. So that was like an exact confirmation of how I know I'm in the right flow. I know I'm doing the right things in my life when I get that feedback from the universe. And it's a constant. So you have to look for that. It will show up. It is there. You have to look for it.
And the more that you get in tune with yourself and take time to do this inner work, as I know you've experienced and a lot of people we're friends with have, you start to see all the people you start to attract who are on this same mission. And the power of all that together, it's like, whoosh. I feel like my generation, I just turned 40. I was having this conversation with someone the other day. I feel like my crew, like, we graduated, we came out of college, everyone had to check all these things off a list. Well, I'm also sitting here as a 40-year-old woman who is not married yet, doesn't have children yet, and by societal standards, it's like I've failed at life, like I'm not successful, but I have a beautiful, abundant life that I've created for myself. And I have found so much success in just getting to this alignment with myself. So I think that's part of this community and conversation too, is allowing a space for people to define what success is for them. It doesn't need to be this like picture perfect societal, you've done this, right? Allowing yourself to have the freedom to create your own way and trust, like you said earlier, that God, source, whatever you believe in, your spirit knows what you came here to do, and you will do it. It might not happen in the time that you wished, but it will happen. Yeah.
So remember earlier I lost my thought?
Was it that?
Just reminded me.
Shocker.
It's like, so when you said you were 40, it's like, I'm almost 50. Yeah. And I look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, gosh, I know I look better now than I did even when I was 40 or 35 years old.
Because you're happy.
Because I'm happy, because I've done that work. But more than that, more than how I look physically, I feel better in my body than I did 10 years ago. Even that I did 5 years ago or even 2 years ago. I feel better at this age now that I am, because it's so much of that inner work. And the more I become aware of my body and do that inner work, the better my body feels. I'm more flexible than I ever have been. I just came back from a yoga meditation retreat up in Whistler, and I have not done yoga for several years. And I was like, at the end of the week, I'm like, I actually really acknowledged and give gratitude for my body for the fact that I did a HIIT class every single day on the mat, and also I did a yoga class, a couple of them every single day, and hiked every day, or swam, or did something.
Yes.
And I had no pain in my body for the entire week of doing that, because of where I'm at with those thoughts and the gratitude of my body. And it's so, if you want to look younger and if you want to feel better, change your thoughts, disrupt your thoughts.
Amen.
Create some personalized meditations with focus for me.
That's a great segue to close out. I love that, because it's so the truth. And I'm excited for everybody listening to tune in every week and hear these conversations continue. If you were to leave everybody with one final thought now about people who will continue to use the app, tune in every week, what's kind of one final thing you'd love to just share with everybody?
The word that comes up is love. Love wins the day. Love that's the legacy I would like to live. That's the legacy I'd like to share with others, is just love. There's so much power and energy in just loving.
Yes. Amen. And we love you all for tuning in and listening.
Yeah, love you. Thank you for being here.
Love you. I'm so proud of you.
Kicking this off.
Yeah, I'm excited to continue to listen. And I would say to everybody who's also listening, for you, if you find this interesting and fascinating and it's helpful for you, to, of course, continue to share it with your friends and family and make sure they know about Focus Formulas as well.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, we wish you all a beautiful day. We love you.
Thank you. See you next time.